Hello, my flamboyant groundhogs. It's actually Groundhog Day, so I had to make a special chess video. Actually, I just found out it was Groundhog Day. No one told me about it, but thanks for whoever told me. So I just played a couple random Blitz games, and they were so bad that it was funny, but also instructive. I mean, I played them just for fun. I promise I happen to win both. I promise I'm not just trying to, show only my wins. I just played 2 games today and I don't know, I can't help it. I keep winning, okay? I'm sorry. So I'll show those. Really strange stuff happened. So if I may take you through this first game. So I'm actually, okay, apparently my Blitz rating is like 2,000 whatever. My opponent was a little bit more than that. But one thing to keep in mind is don't overthink those numbers. Because whomever you're playing against, well, okay, I guess some people are different, the people who use engines during the game. That's a different story, but if you're playing a human, that's what's important. Even if it's a number way higher than your number, that person is bound to make mistakes. I like to pretend that my rating is a lot higher than it is. One, for, self-validation reasons, and also just so I don't trust my opponent too much. Don't believe what your opponent. Don't go away from a line just because you think, oh, my opponent has calculated that. Okay, so this game I played one of the most fascinating openings in chess, in my opinion. The Berlin defense, or this line in the Spanish is pretty forcing. Now, of course, white has numerous options, but there's only really one way to actually fight for any sort of advantage, which is to castle, allow me to take, d4. I wisely have to bring my knight back, otherwise I get in big trouble when rook e1 lands. And if you've not seen this for the first time, you're like, what are you doing, bud? Okay, so as we just saw, allowed the queen trade where my king had to move when there's an open line right here. And I've played this capture where I have this 4 against 3 majority on the queen side, but it's almost impossible to make use of that. So you might think I'm just worse. Well, if you haven't seen this before, that's what people said. But then this guy named Vladimir came along, Vladimir Kramnik. He was known for, being quite a technical player, and he added a lot, or it changed a lot about how we thought about chess, and showed how hard it is to lose a game. And this was in, of course, like longer time control practice I'm talking about, but positions like this, where it seems, without looking at too much, that white is just better or even winning, they're surprisingly holdable. And in this case, actually, I mean, even with modern engines, it's like a very minuscule edge for white. So it's not even a big deal. The bishop pair is also something that people used to not make such a big deal of. Now people make too big a deal of. Well, some people do. I might be one of them. Anyway, I kind of knew what I was doing. At least I pretended to. Just see a few Kramnik games, and then I'm set. I'm all good to go, right? Well, if this were a more serious game, maybe not the best way to prepare. This I thought was kind of strange or redundant. I don't see the point in defending the pawn. But anyway, what I thought was most interesting about these couple games is how ludicrous the deciding moments were. So it's kind of funny. It's like the opening choice didn't even matter. Okay, I think this was a mistake. So you see, we're not beginners. Our rating starts with a 2, and it's not 200. But one mistake that perhaps I was the first one to make is you're trying so hard to do something. I mean, what if I just trade rooks? That's, no problems. I'm all okay. I kind of go off the deep end by trying to expand on the queen side. There's really no need for me to do that. It just kind of creates more weaknesses that my opponent can jump on. Yeah, this was really unnecessary and just weakening my structure. I should have stayed more compact. And even going crazy on the king side if the queen side wasn't enough. Okay, and this is where I really... It's hard to explain why I didn't just... Well, it already is pretty unfortunate for me. Maybe the best I have is just to kind of admit defeat and trade rooks, even if that means dropping this pawn. But I insisted on somehow getting this maneuver in, even though that would still drop the c-pawn, so I don't know what's going on there. But I think knight d5 is quite crushing. But I guess, who knows, maybe it was a mouse slip. Knight e4 is not so horrible either. Anyway, we reach this point, and now it's actually kind of the reverse of before. I'm becoming okay again. Now, if I'm just patient and I play a5, then there's hardly any way to stop rook a d8, right? And the trades, and I should be all good. But I instead thought, hey, I'll just trade the rooks, lose the a pawn, and I'll figure it out after that. And this, I think, underlines whether you're playing Blitz or more serious long-time control, we all have a tendency to think that the best move should be doing something, right? Doing this, doing that, doing a trade, making a trade happen, or doing some expansion, getting a piece activated. But what about just being still? Whoever talks about that. I think the main reasons we make so many rash decisions is we feel this compulsion to make something happen, when really the position needs more quiet moves, just getting ready for when the action happens. And you'll see actually, if you ever look at games, let's say like, AlphaZero versus Lila chess, the top chess engines playing each other, you see so many consecutive moves where it's barely anything happening. Like, it's just very subtle maneuvers, no breakthroughs or even exchanges, just quietly building up the position. And I think that's a big gap between human and computer chess, is that aside from the flawless calculation abilities, we have trouble sitting still, even when that's what's needed. Okay, so I surrender the pawn, and I know this is a worse endgame, but as they say, in Blitz, the bishop is so much trickier than the knight. Wait, it's the other way around. Yeah, they say the bishop is stronger, but the knight is more clever. So, I'm in a Blitz game, and the knight is tricky, but here's what people don't realize. The knight is tricky not only for your opponent, but for the person who wields the knight. So yeah, I get the king in, yay. This move, I have no idea what it was to do other than to take this. But of course that's a one move threat. My opponent had this idea that something must be done, but I mean, if anything is done, it could just be a quiet king move. So I just defend the pawn, and here actually the only way white can even not be losing material is to bring the knight back around this way. Okay, and then it'll take a few moves, but what's a few tempo? Since I can't do anything constructive, so white just needs to admit this mistake, and just go back, regroup, and I can hardly do anything in the 4 tempi that it takes to get the knight back to civilization. And then another psychological point. I mean, I'm sure if you just asked this 2,100 player, even with only, a few seconds to respond, if you just gave the opponent this position and said, what does white need to do? Of course, the person would find that, okay, the knight is going to be trapped by c5, taking away the only escape square. Knight goes nowhere over here. So knight b4 has to be played. But because the last move was knight a6, clearly intending something about this pawn, but not trying to even regroup over here because that's just a waste of time. It's hard to make that move. So instead, my opponent played here, and from this desperate position, I just trapped the knight. And already know where it can go. I mean, if the knight goes here, king c7 will make it go back to a6 where it still gets trapped, and my bishop is coming here. So we tried this. I just, remember, don't believe your opponent. I knew there was no trick behind it. I'm just winning a piece. So I just take, and this prompted resignation. Again, if the knight goes here, no problem. I can just play something like here. The knight is trapped. So remember, when they say the knight is trickier, especially in Blitz, it can also be tricky for the person who is moving the knight. Okay. Now this next game was, well, I was the one who was more the piece blunderer. The opening was actually pretty funny. There's this trap that I haven't seen in ages where I know there's many ways out of it. I just got scared and castled. It's probably just fine. So if you haven't seen this trap, or if you have, just bear with me, but the idea goes, this could be the most natural move, right? I mean, you're taking a center pawn, even threatening f7. Like, what more can you ask from the fourth move of the game? Well, then here, okay, threatening the knight and this, no problem, we can take the pawn, right? Threatening the queen and the rook. Here, allowing queen takes h1 is just devastating, right? Only way to save it is here. Then this check, and you already know what's happening. Blocks, and I mean, there's many ways to lose, but I wouldn't want to lose this way. Not on Groundhog Day, at least. So I didn't want to lose that way on Groundhog Day, so instead I decided to blunder my bishop out of the opening. Yeah, I mean, of course, if I'm the kind of person who plays the Berlin endgame, maybe I should have traded queens. Somehow I felt the queen misplaced on f6 where it blocks the knight's development. My queen is just better off. Plus, black is behind in development. So if I want to make something happen against the king, I would rather have the queens on. And this also is very ambitious for black, I think. I mean, obviously aiming at b5, but there's a bit of a development problem. So here, actually, my best move, I believe, would be just going for it with d4. I mean, when I have such a clear lead in development, I think I can play such a move without necessarily calculating all of the possibilities. If it's taken, I could even go e5, right? I think the queen would have to move, because if the queen takes, well, there's going to be trouble here, even if I can't put the rook there right away. Like, I could even play something that looks kind of slow, like moving, oh, well, it's dropping this. That too. Yeah, too many problems. Anyway, so d4 would be my best move. So, you know, I could, to protect my ego, say that my next move was a mouse slip, but instead, I'll just say I played the only move that makes b5 win the bishop. I think I don't know, I just had too much to drink. Too much water, I mean, of course. So yeah, b5 happened. But remember, first of all, it's a 5-minute game. Okay, I guess you can see the times here. It's not so critical, but yeah, that's how much time we each have over here. I decided I'm objectively losing. Anyone could resign here, but I'm going to pretend that... Okay, in actual fact, I'm lower rated, but I was pretending that, hey, my rating's 2466, right? I'm not going to trust that my lower rated opponent can win up a piece, so I keep playing. And my opponent is probably annoyed that I'm even still playing. It should be a pretty simple win, yes? the knight goes here. And that already looks a bit awkward, right? It's hard for the bishop to come out. Of course, it's nowhere near enough compensation for having lost my bishop, but I played this move because knight d5 can be very unpleasant to think about. So this knight really shouldn't move from now on, because if, say, knight c6, then I do have knight d5 coming. Here, okay, this made me really hopeful. I just played here because I thought it's trickier if I keep pressure on here, even though the queen's defending. Like, if I was really hoping for a move like this, I could be a legend. Do you see the move? Well, I could play knight d5, and wherever the queen goes... Oh, you know, okay, this is even worse than I thought. I could even go knight c7 right away, but just to make a bigger spectacle out of it, I could even take, and then this. So anyway, I've lost a piece earlier, but there's a lot of tricks that the opponent has to maneuver away from. Yeah, so the bishop comes out this way, and I thought, hey, I'm up in development. Stop mentioning that I'm down a piece. I'm just going to open this up. I was really expecting take, and then what do? I guess take with the rook, generate some pressure on the f-pawn, pretend I have enough compensation. Castle I thought was a strange decision, because I take. And again, because I have this pressure here, the queen cannot take. So the queen has to go somewhere like this, where it's still defending the bishop. Now, I realized I had to keep doing things. And this is a case, contrary to what I said previously. I mean, if I do nothing, I am just going to be clearly down a piece. So this is a position where I do have to keep up the threats. So I threaten the knight, and then threaten the knight this way. So it actually has to move. White has run out of ways to keep defending it with pieces, which means finally I get back to that glorious d5 square that I was denied for so long. Now the bishop took here, and I missed a good shot here, which could have been d4. I gave up on this too soon. That's another thing. I mean, it takes a lot of preparation too to build up your instincts, your intuition. But when you are thinking about a line and you think that it should be promising, but then you look a few moves in and you see nothing, if something in your brain tells you, but it should be working, please just check a little further. Since I would have seen, well, what I looked at was something like capturing here, and I don't really want to take this one. I'd rather take, well, maybe that's what I looked at, taking here. But if I take this one, if I'm able to take the bishop as well, I've won material in this trade. But what I just failed to consider is, even if the bishop moves away, thanks to this being here, I'm winning the rook. So yes, I just failed to see a move deeper than I needed to, and that caused me to miss a great chance back into the game. But even after my inaccurate move, it's not easy for black. Like, I'm curious what the computer evaluation is. Okay, yeah, so obviously quite in black's favor. But practically speaking, with this ugly knight back here, disconnecting the rooks, I agree. Like, over the board, black should definitely be winning this. It's not easy, though. So this was played, and I just happily moved the bishop back. Happy because I was already setting another trap. Earlier I had thought about things like knight b4, but of course that cuts off my queen's defense of the bishop, allowing queen takes c5. But after d6, okay, I casually moved my bishop back, and what do you know? My opponent misses the idea. It's ironic that actually it's like my opponent is asking for it, pressuring my knight. Oh, what's my knight gonna do? Well, my knight's gonna win your bishop. And I think at this point I have the advantage. Yeah, since I'm winning back the piece, and I still have a couple pawns for it and all compensation or whatever. So now I already have the upper hand. And if you look at the time situation, I have 38 seconds. There's no increment this game. So I wasn't even sure if I could win this, but I was always waiting for my chance to get back into the game, and then I had it. So I was going all in for Groundhog Day. This was tried, I think, really unnecessary, because the dark square bishop was quite an important defender of this. And I think that, by the way, that was again an example of how, well, let's see, I think I guess it's losing for black either way, but simply moving the queen and allowing me to take the light square bishop is not as bad as giving up the dark square bishop, I think. Yeah, like all the top moves, advantage white, but are just moving the queen. I think my opponent had this impulse that I shouldn't be allowed to do exactly what I set out to do, so the opponent wanted to do something. But that something, doing something, only worked in my favor. So it clouds your objective evaluation of what resulting positions are the best. Because now, even with only under 30 seconds, as you see, I was able to pull this off. Threatening checkmate, really forcing the queen trade. No other way to stop the queen g7 mate. So I trade and then take that bishop and then this. Another funny moment over here, by the way. You know, two experts are playing, and obviously I'm winning, but you know, I go up to threaten here. I see a check. I have 15 seconds. Of course, what do? Move the king. That's also another reason for h4. But as, well, maybe you, the viewer, noticed. If you didn't, that's okay. I didn't either. There's nothing stopping me from taking that. You know, that's what 2000 rated players do. They move rooks to do check where a bishop can just take it. And yeah, despite, if you want to see how dramatic it was, just take a look at my time after each move. But I was able to set up a quick checkmate to not have my swindle be wasted. I ended up checkmating with 2 rooks. You know, there was someone made a video about 2 rook checkmates. It was like 9 minutes long. It's a tough one to explain, okay? I could have just done this, of course, but I might have pre-moved that, and there we go. So if there's any theme to both of these games, I would say the theme is that even players who are rated quite decently, you know, I'm not saying I'm a champion of anything, but you know, starting with a 2 and it's not 200. These games are still decided by the silliest of mistakes. And it's inspiring in a way, because it's kind of difficult to improve your, you know, fine-tuned positional play. It can seem more daunting, but if all you need to do to get much better results is to stop blundering, I mean, I don't know what to say. Maybe do more tactics. We should emphasize tactics more. That could be it. But the other thing was not about what you need to practice, but during the game, how you should be thinking. Don't be so biased towards doing, making things happen. Because as in many examples that I pointed out through these 2 games, each side made mistakes that could only be attributed to feeling that something must happen, that it's not enough to simply wait around. So think about that next time. If whether it's a long time control game over the board, or you're just messing around playing Blitz, trying to boost your rating on Lee chess or whatever, don't assume that your best move is to force the agenda. Alright, we'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed those messy games, and see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your Groundhog Day.